I'm here with Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran. Alexander, let's talk about Italy. And it looks like that Giuseppe Conte, will be back as prime minister. We have the Five-Star Movement and the PD, the Democratic Party, forming a coalition, or at least it appears that they're going to be moving towards a coalition. And that means that they are pushing the League and Matteo Salvini out of power for now. A lot of people who support Salvini and his party have kind of been upset about this news. I don't think it's that upsetting. I actually think it's, I don't want to say a good thing, but I think all they're doing is buying time for an eventual Salvini government. I'm pretty sure you share the same sentiment. Actually, I know that you've repeated what I've said in more detail. So get into what's going on in Italy and get into why all they're doing at this moment, this time, is just delaying the inevitable.
Well, this is exactly the point, because what they have done is they have frozen Salvini out for the moment in a way that will ensure that when the next Italian election happens, and I predict that will not be very long, the Salvini victory will be even bigger. If they had allowed an election to happen now, Salvini might have won around 35 to 40% of the vote. It's possible he would have got a majority in the Italian Chamber of Deputies, but it's unlikely. More probably, he would have had to go into coalition with certain other smaller right-wing parties. What they're doing by postponing this election, by putting Salvini in a position where he is able to say that he has been kept out of power as a result of an establishment stitch-up, is that when the election finally comes, he will win it by a landslide and will be able to form a majority government. Now, can I just say a few things? Firstly, this coalition between the Five-Star Movement and the Democratic Party is very similar to a coalition, if such a thing had been possible in Greece, between Syriza and PASOK. I mean, these are two parties, the Democratic Party and the Five-Star Movement, which have always been deadly rivals. The Five-Star Movement was created to replace the Democratic Party on the left. There are going to be many, many people in the Five-Star Movement who are going to be extremely unhappy about this new coalition. The second thing to say is that the Democratic Party, which is Italy's oldest party, or at least the oldest party with a lineal history, it is in fact the direct descendant of the Italian Communist Party that used to be so important up to the 1980s, the party of Togliatti and Gramsci and Berlinguer. This, in Italian terms, today is just about as establishment as it gets. So the Five-Star Movement, which started as an anti-establishment party, is now going into coalition with Italy's most establishment party. It is going into coalition at the behest of the Italian president, who is also a well-established establishment figure. So of course it looks like a stitch-up, because it is a stitch-up, which is what Salvini will say. And it is a stitch-up which is going to fail, because this government is not going to be just a stitch-up government to keep Salvini out of power. It is going to be a government taking over a failed economic environment and a very bad situation both in Italy and Europe. Italy's economy is still 5% smaller than it was at the time of the 2008 crisis. Italy has never recovered from the 2008 crisis. Unemployment in Italy remains high. Debt dynamics in Italy are continuing to grow. Debt is now 133% of GDP. Youth unemployment remains extraordinarily high. So preserving the status quo gifts Salvini from the opposition with an open goal when the election eventually happens and when this new, very unhappy coalition finally breaks down. What this whole situation reminds me of so much is what happened after the latest parliamentary elections in Germany. Those parliamentary elections showed a big swing against Angela Merkel's grand coalition of the CDU, the CSU, and the SPD. And everybody was saying at the time that this coalition, has lived out its life. It must now end, and Angela Merkel must retire. And instead, what happened instead was, again, at the insistence of the German presidency, this coalition was kept in office in order to keep the insurgent parties, the AfD, the Linkspartei, the Greens, out of power. And the result has been decay in Germany. And the result of doing the same thing is going to be decay in Italy. The big difference between Italy and Germany is that whereas in Germany, the opposition has yet to fully cohere, in Italy it has, and it's coalesced around Salvini.
Yeah, I'm looking at a Guardian article right now, Alexander, where they quote the EU's budget commissioner, Günther Ottenberg, who said that a 5-star Democrat Party tie-up in Italy was, and I quote, great news for Italy and the EU.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's great news for the EU. I'm not so sure that it's great news for Italy, because, as I said, it sustains an unsustainable status quo, just as it does the same in Germany. This is the practice of the EU. It sends the can rolling along. I'm going to say something completely counterfactual. I think that it would have made better sense in some ways for the EU to have Salvini, Prime Minister of Italy now, as a minority, heading a minority government, a minority Prime Minister, because then it would have been much easier, I think, to stop him and to block him. If you push it back and there's an election and he wins a majority, his position is going to be much stronger. And that could be very well the position the EU is facing in 6 months' time.
Yeah, we saw this movie play out in Greece between Syriza and the independent Greeks. You had Syriza far left, radical left, the independent Greeks they were a very small party, but they formed a coalition. And they're actually conservative right. Some people call them far right, but they formed a coalition under an anti-EU banner. Yeah. And that was reneged pretty much immediately once Tsipras got into power. So, I mean, this coalition, I don't think it'll work. And I think you're exactly right that when Syriza went against their mandate and they decided to move away from being anti-EU to become pro-EU, it was just a matter of time before they would lose the elections decisively. Exactly. They hung on for a lot of years, but they ended up losing decisively. The question that I have to you, Alexander, is do you think that this coalition and the 5-star movement, which will collapse if they do decide to go into government with the Democratic Party, the PD, if they decide to go into government with them under a pro-EU banner, the 5-star movement will collapse. The question that I have is how will they be able to drag it on like Syriza did for 4 or 5 years? Or will it be a quick collapse?
No, I think it will be a quick collapse for a number of reasons. Firstly, I think this will be a very unstable coalition. I mean, whatever one thinks of Tsipras, he dominated Syriza I mean, he controlled Syriza. There is no analogous person controlling the Five Star Movement. It's a very chaotic and disorganized movement. Conte himself is not a strong personality, and I think he will find it very, very difficult to hold this coalition together and to keep the Five Star Movement under control. I predict that the Five Star Movement will implode and that there will be huge pressure within the Five Star Movement for the coalition to be scrapped. And I also predict that there will be defections from it, that there will be all kinds of people within this Five Star Movement who will leave, and that this could very well end up, in the end, depriving this government of a majority. That's one thing. The other thing, and it's very important to remember this about Greece and contrast this with Italy. Greece did not have a strong anti-European alternative. The New Democracy Party in Greece is a pro-EU party. Italy has a strong anti-EU alternative. Salvini is the most popular political leader in Italy. He's polling around 35 to 40% of the vote. He's captured the Italian popular imagination, and he is a genuine alternative. So we have a very different situation being attempted here. I mean, there are similarities, but the politics of the two countries are profoundly different, and in ways that work against this new unsustainable coalition government being sustained in power for very long.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, Alexander. I think that you, as well as Tom Luongo, are probably the two analysts who have called this correctly for Italy. I think you guys are the only two analysts that are actually looking at this via a medium to long-term perspective. I know that you said that this coalition could collapse very quickly, but you guys aren't looking at it from just the standpoint that Salvini is out today. No. Because he may very well become, by pushing him out today and not letting him be prime minister with a small majority, say, or under a majority, slightly under the majority, when he does come back, whether that's in 6 months or a year, whenever Italy does have elections, he is going to be a very strong majority. Whether we can call that medium to long term in this case. And I think on the cities, I think real quick, I think you're right. I think what Greece, the example that Greece holds is for the Five-Star Movement. The Five-Star Movement should have looked at Syriza and said, you know what, This is a red flag for us. Let's not defy our party platform like Syriza did.
Exactly. Podemos, by the way, in Spain, did exactly.
That's a great point.
Exactly the same thing. When these parties
collapsed. Podemos. Yeah,
they collapsed exactly. When these parties, like the Five-Star Movement, Podemos, Syriza, these left-wing anti-EU parties, go into a coalition with establishment pro-EU parties, they invariably collapse because the people who supported and voted for them feel betrayed. Now, Salvini is not making that mistake. He is not drawn to being part of the establishment, and he will come out much stronger from this, ultimately. Tom Luongo, as you correctly said, a brilliant analyst, by the way, says it. I have to add another name, Ambrose Evans Pritchard in the Daily Telegraph, whom I often have disagreements with on many things, but who consistently, in my opinion, calls Italy right also, is also making the same point. What they are doing in order to avert a Salvini government is they are averting a weak Salvini government now, whilst preparing the ground for a much stronger Salvini government in a few months' time. By the way, I have to say something about this. I mean, there's a lot of discussion about whether Salvini himself may have miscalculated. I have to say, the more I've thought about this, I think the less likely that looks to me, because this coalition he was involved in with the Five-Star Movement wasn't really going anywhere. And sooner or later, it had to end. And if he prolonged it for much longer, I suspect that people would have started to say, well, Salvini is all mouth, but no action. He's in coalition with the Five Star Movement. They are stopping him from doing anything. He's not prepared to part with them. So he's obviously not the man he's pretending to be. He's no longer burdened with that anymore now that he's cut his link with the Five Star Movement. So, yes, he's out of office. But remember, even though he was in office, he was never really in power. So he hasn't actually given up very much. And by taking the steps he's done, he's put himself in a position where in 6 months' time, he could be both in office and in power.
I completely agree with that. I think he did the right move. I think this is great news, actually. He's got rid of the Five Star Movement. He got rid of these guys. They've made a strategic error, a massive strategic blunder. They will collapse, and it just opens the road for Salvini to come in, take power, and actually institute his agenda, not only as an anti-EU agenda, but a pro-Italy agenda, and start, passing some real policy that can help Italy and can help the Italian people. Which is, I think, what he wants. He's proving to be the real deal.
Well, I mean, we'll have to see when he becomes prime minister, but he's taken a huge step, in my opinion, towards that point. I mean, before this government with Conte, the Conte-Salvini government was formed, it was the Five Star Movement that was the leading anti-EU, if you like, opposition in Italy. Salvini has leveraged that period that he was in the government to get all this enormous amount of attention, to become, as I said, the man of the moment in Italy. And he's now in a position to cash in on that come the next election. And as I said, the Five Star Movement and the Democratic Party have created the perfect target for him. I mean, Italy is a ripe fruit waiting to fall into his hands.
Excellent analysis. Alexander Mercouris, Editor-in-Chief of Duran. Thank you very much. Guys, if you like this video, click on the subscribe button down below and click on that notifications bell to make sure you get notifications every time we push out a new video. Remember to follow us on iTunes and Soundcloud as well, so you can get an audio copy of this video. And you can also donate to us on PayPal, Patreon, and Subscribestar. Your donations help keep this channel up and running. It really helps keep us going, and we appreciate every donation that comes our way. And of course, we also appreciate it when you go to the Duran shop and you pick up some awesome merchandise, like that blue polo that Alexander is wearing with the double-headed eagle embroidered. We have our magic mugs, which will increase your geopolitical quotient, your GQ, by hundreds upon hundreds of points. And Alexander absolutely has, I believe, the Alpha mug today.
That's right. This is one of my favorites, actually, because, as I said, it's so unlike me in some respects, because I'm the most civilian of people. But these guys whose badge this is are some of the meanest and toughest soldiers on earth, and we have to do enormously tough analysis if we're really going to stay on top of it on really tough subjects. So you need a strong mug, a really strong, beautiful mug, enormously capacious, so that we can put lots of tea in it. And at the same time, with the badge of these really tough guys, it makes it possible for us to be tough and to analyze these things properly. I love this mug. And I would also say, just look at the color. And what an elegant color that is. It's a really, really stylish mug. And we've got heaps of them. I mean, I've also got this one by my desk. This is the one actually I was drinking from until a few moments ago, which I had tea in it. But this one has the double-headed eagle of the Russian Federation, as in Vladimir Putin's, as you find on Vladimir Putin's mugs. And these are beautiful mugs. And of course, not just mugs. We've got polo shirts, like you said, with also our own double-headed eagle there, beautifully embroidered. These are marvelous, 100% cotton shirts, beautifully dyed. We're getting enormously good feedback from about these shirts, about our T-shirts, about our stickers, about our hats, about our books. We have e-books. which covers topics like Russiagate and Brexit with the same level of analysis that you see on our videos, or as I say, boosted from drinking from mugs like this. So help the Duran, help yourself, go to our shop. Alex will tell you how to do it.
You can find the link for our shop, theduranshop.com, in the description box down below. Please go to the shop, pick up something. You're going to love it. Original Duran merchandise, original double-headed eagle designs, original Duran designs on those magic mugs. Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran. Thank you very much. Until next time, everybody, take care.